Welcome everyone to Admiral Markets webinar here. We're going to take a look at the charts, a technical analysis in this live webinar, 7th of August, 2014. This is the last webinar before I will take a week off, and both Ned and I will be back actually on the 19th of August, 12 days from now, with more webinars, of course, as usual, for the rest of probably the year, I guess. Before we continue, the disclaimer here, online material is intended for a global audience, so please take into account that this session may not be suitable for everyone who is watching here. To find out if that is so or if it is valid for you, go to admiralmarketsglobal.com and you'll get more information on charting conditions and other details. Select your country of residence and contact an appropriate entity. Also, trading for exchange and global financial markets is considered high risk and it may not be suitable for all investors. Please seek the advice of an independent financial advisor for more information on that. And this webinar is for educational and informational purposes only. By continuing watching this webinar, you agree with the disclaimer mentioned on this slide and on the admiralmarketsglobal.com website. And as always, I do thank you for your attention on both disclaimers. Today, let's take a look at intraday trading. We'll be using fibs, trendlines, moving averages, Camarilla indicator as the main price action candlesticks as the main guidance for that. So stay tuned. Before we actually do that though, let's take a look at the calendar. And when we look at the calendar, we found out the Aussie had an employment change was way lower than forecasted. Certainly sent the Aussie weaker as the Aussie fell against the dollar after a sudden rise yesterday. Spike up, spike down, but the Aussie employment change fueling that downside. Participation rate slightly up, unemployment rate heavily up, 6.4 from 6, so that's a pretty massive upside, relatively speaking. So, or absolutely speaking, actually, no matter how you look at it. So, I'm not surprised that the Aussie in that regard moved down that much. We also have the euro today. We have euro and pound interest rate decisions. So, just be aware of that 4 hours from now. When we get close to it, you might want to be careful and step out of a trade because these things could always rock the market. And then we have an ECB press conference. So let's take a look at the 15-minute charts. Is there something going on that is of interest for us at the moment? For me personally, the pound could be interesting. The euro doesn't look that interesting. The pound could be because we're getting some momentum to the downside here. So either a hook back maybe to the daily pivot point or otherwise a break below L3 could be an interesting setup for pound dollar for follow through. If you use trend lines as an extra confirmation tool, we kind of broke out of this support trend line right here with a good momentum early this morning. So that looks like a good break. So looking for more of a hook back. As always, I forgot my drawing tool. Hang on, folks. Let me just quickly get that. In the meantime, I have an invitation from Mike to go to Greece. I like that day a lot. This year is going to be a bit too late for me, but hopefully next year. Do you have a specific spot that you recommend? Yeah, we do have pound news and euro news indeed. Definitely be careful of that interest rate decision 4 hours from now. In the meantime, though, we have still a few hours to that level. There are some traders indeed, like myself, that never touch the euro and pound on an interest day. Others do that as well. Then again, it's still 4 hours from now. It doesn't mean that one couldn't maybe take a trade in those 4 hours. But just be careful indeed as time gets closer to the news event. Obviously, there's going to have going to be less movement, then the market is going to be waiting for those news events. So a hook back to the daily pivot point, for instance, or the break below L3, I think are potential setups for a follow through here to, well, maybe 167 eventually. 167.90 is the daily S2, but it could even extend to 167.50 or even 167, although maybe not today necessarily. Well, the interest rate, if it is bearish, it could send it pretty far down, but most of the downside gain will probably be due to the interest rate, if we do have that. For a break of L3 within the next 3 hours, which you want to close before the interest rate, targeting probably 167.90 is the more conservative target to aim for. So this looks interesting, the pound dollar. The euro dollar is a bit different because the pound dollar is in a bearish momentum. You see the 21 EMA band here, angle to the downside. The euro dollar is actually, it does have it, but look at the difference here with the 89. 89 is down, 21 is below it, 89 is up, 21 is above it. You see there's that different angle to it. But both could be bearish, but there's a bit of a difference there. That's why I like the pound. It looks a bit more bearish in its momentum, I think, looking at these particular elements at least. Kiwi 2 also has a good bearishness here. So a break below this bottom, for instance, could be already something to look at. We had a pretty strong 1 hour retracement after that fall. Shooting stars here showing rejection on the hourly. So this looks like a potential breakout below the 21 band on the 1 hour chart. So that's something that could happen. We're below the daily pivot. So I would say a breakout below this 84.50 level could be a good bearish setup, right? We have momentum, pullback. Once we start to fall again, we could continue with that momentum we saw in the Kiwi prior to it. We have a strong AO reading on the hourly. We went back to the zero line. So I think that the hourly looks well set up. So if the price manages to break below this 84.50, it looks like a decent breakout. Actually, this could already, if one wants to try to position themselves earlier prior to the breakout, maybe here could be already an interesting short. But we always run a bit of the risk, of course, that in those cases, price just doesn't actually break through the level and maybe starts to go sideways or kind of like does this. That's something that is the danger. So the solution to that could be to wait for a 50-minute price action signal like a wick here before shorting it, for instance. That's the Kiwi. New Zealand dollar. So those two look interesting to me. Let's take a look at the Aussie. Aussie, big fall because of the interest rate. Actually, yesterday was a great breakout trade here to the upside. You see all the moving averages aligned. Boom. Good break. If you took the break of the fractals, you got a good 40, 45 pips. If you took a bit earlier, maybe somewhere here off the bounce, that's even 50 pips. So that was a good spike up, good with the trend, intraday trade there. Just like the Kiwi, let me think, was it yesterday? Yeah, the Kiwi had in the afternoon, no, that was, I'm getting confused here. Sorry, no, forget it. That's a different, that was Tuesday, the downside. Now, let me, I have to think which pairs moved nice yesterday. It was the dollar CAD moved nicely and one more. I think it was the Euro odd. We'll take a look in a second. We had two good setups in the afternoon, two good setups in the morning, yesterday morning. I just want to quickly review those, but it wasn't the Kiwi. The Kiwi set up, though, nicely, I think, for downside, just like the pound. I would only change that, really, if price were to would push up to the H3 here. That's the only time I would change it. So we got a bit of a shooting star here on the 15-minute chart, the last 15 minutes. which looks like a nice discount here for downside. Good wick. We had the break here already of these fractals, so this looks like a hook back for more downside. But you know, trading is never 100%. There's always that risk that it's still in the early phase of a downside. Why? Because the moving averages are more intertwined. That's the risk. But in general, the hourly looks good. We just discussed it. And we are breaking this. We're breaking the, no, sorry. We're breaking this trend line here. Once again, the pound, how does that look like? Yeah, it too is trying to, it's not even making this retrace. Let's see if the next 15-minute candle we can post the fractal here. The 5-minute chart would have it. So yeah, the 5-minute has bottoms. That's also okay. So yeah, basically a break below could be an entry one might want to think about. With the stop loss above these tops. Alrighty. There was something else I wanted to discuss as well. Let me think for a second which one it was. The Euro New Zealand, actually. And the Euro Yen. Euro New Zealand looks like in a good potential breakout to the upside. We have, well, I mean, all of these setups are on the early side of things because the moving averages are just pretty intertwined, but they have a bullish slant to it. And we have kind of like an ascending wedge, if you were like this. We have clearly a top that is in play. We are above the daily pivot point. We are hitting the H3 here, so above it looks like a good breakout trade to me. So that's something to think about. That's New Zealand weakness, so that supports the New Zealand dollar weakness downside as well. So which one is better, Euro New Zealand or New Zealand dollar? If we look at the Euro dollar, we see that the 15 is intertwined, but we know that the hourly is down, roughly speaking, although we had the spike up yesterday. Despite that, overall down, therefore probably dollar stronger, therefore probably New Zealand dollar better. My 2 cents. So otherwise, Euro Yen, I took a breakout trade to the upside here. I'm still in that trade, but I'm not sure if that was a smart idea, to be honest. Not looking so at the moment. I didn't take any profit either because they look like good candles, and this looked like a hook back. I didn't see any necessarily signals that I should grab some profit. I like to grab some profit so that I take the overall position into more of a break-even position. That hasn't happened as yet. I'm not sure how much patience I will have with this. At the moment, I entered around 86, I think, only down a few pips. So if this is maybe still a bouncing spot. This looked like the same structure where we had a bullish moving averages. We had a clear top, so that's where I entered. And but we're getting a stronger downside. That probably has to do with the dollar yen not following through at the moment. Let's take a look at the hourly. Hourly had a bit of a wick, but nothing major. If the wick would have been a bit bigger, I would have definitely been more in a hastier mode. I might move the stop loss just below these bottoms here. Reduce the risk to about 12 pips, which is still not that much, especially compared to yesterday's euro odd, which I got about 30 out of that, and the pound yen I got about 60. So then 12 is not too bad. Obviously, it's a pity because I was up 25, but what can you do? So I think I'll do that. 1 second. Alrighty. So maybe this is a bouncing spot. I don't know. It seems a bit risky at the moment. That's what my thought was, but at the moment it doesn't really show anything interesting that I would say. So I would wait on this, give it a bit more time. We can take a look again half an hour from now or so. EuroCAD, let's take a look. All these odds, of course, are moving up, and anyone we even traded it after the news, for instance, when taking it somewhere in here, still getting some 30 pips follow through after the news, which is not too bad. Anyone who traded the Aussie there after the news. Now, of course, one might think, a big move up like that is sometimes scary, isn't it? To see a big move up like that. Often enough, though, because there's such a big moves, such a power, you most of the time actually see a follow through, small, 30 pip indeed, but you do see the follow through. So they're pretty high reliable, high probable points for follow through if you have such a momentum, because although the currency stalls here, they're not high reversal points, high chance reversal points, because of the momentum backing it. No one's going to go against that momentum, and they kind of like get smaller pushes to the upside, and you kind of see, most of the time you see kind of a couple of pushes like this before you get triple divergence on the 15 or 5, and then you see a bit more downside, right? Maybe does that seem familiar? Patterns like this, that's often when you have a big spike up. So taking longs in here after the spike up is sometimes scary indeed, but statistically not pretty high on the high side. Where is the reversal point? Well, difficult to say. As I said, it could meander up like that for quite a while. I wouldn't dare to say at the moment. It's a pretty strong 4-hour bar as well. So I'm not too sure about the overall trend at the moment. We see that we have double divergence on the daily. So if we break above this top, 144.50, which certainly looks like we're doing with engulfing twins, then there is a potential reversal trade to the upside maybe taking place, and we're breaking out of this downtrend channel. In that regard, this reversal could last longer than we think maybe, and the first targets, maybe major target could be 146, for instance, with a zigzag correction maybe there. So for the moment, I would be cautious with downside, personally. EuroCAD. Let's see, EuroCAD long. Well, moving averages are not bullishly aligned as yet. Those are one of the things I do like to see for breakout trades. And yeah, we don't have that on the 15. We might push there. I would want to see the push first. So if price does break like this, then make something like this, looking then for breakouts or follow-throughs could make sense indeed. For the moment, I would want to see a bit more confirmation. I'm thinking if there's any other pair that I wanted to show you. Not for the moment, I think. I think these are the breakouts that seem the most interesting. Yesterday, of course, a quick review. Pound yen was something we discussed in our trading room here. And let me backtrack quickly. This is maybe boring for some of you, but the point is that it's interesting for me, I think it's good, still good to look at it back one day because you get a pattern recognition of, how price can move when it does break out. And I think it's always good to take that as a learning point. But I'm trying to see where that was exactly. Now this was news event driven, which makes it always a questionable setup, of course. So, bear that in mind. However, in this case, the news events did help along this moving average breakout. Doesn't always have to be though. So that's the disadvantage of this setup. The euro didn't have that disadvantage. For full disclosure, the break actually just happened before the news event, and news event happened on this candle, so it was already well up into positive territory before the news event came, actually. So that maybe helped me and helped some of you maybe with that trade setup. If it's hanging in the air and it's around zero, it's not so pleasant. If it's already up, these amount of pips, it's easier. I was shorting it myself at 173.02 around this blue line, and we got a pretty quick follow through. So when the news event hit, I was already up a big amount, and eventually we got a follow through, and I got out about here in this consolidation. So you can see how we had the price pulling the moving averages, a good 21 band below the 89 here, and as we pick up steam, we got a good follow through. Actually, we got one more push through, but I didn't stay in that for that particular part. So this is, we don't have, of course, the pivot points or Camarilla levels of that day, but just using the moving averages, you can see how momentum picks up, breaks below the bottom, and you get the breakthrough here. Now let me take a look at the euro odd. In the meantime, Kiwi is another 50-minute candle closed, and nothing special there. Still at the daily pivot. Euro odd yesterday, not as great as the pound yen. Let me see. I went short on this candle. This one. This breakout candle below the bearish 21 EMA and 89 down. Got a follow through. I survived through this pullback. And then split the trade in two parts. Let's see, one I exited small parts at here on this bullish rebound candle at 25. That's half of the position I closed there. The other half was at oh, it's earlier, sorry. That was the second part. Trying to backtrack where it was. Sorry for that. I wasn't here, right here at this bottom. So, yeah, here was the short, survived this pullback, got it followed through, took part here, and then part here. So roughly the same price, 10 pips difference only. Then we still got one more push through. So if you had a bit more patience, you got one more push through actually before we got the big upside. So it was a bit maybe too soon, but okay, doesn't matter. Still roughly on average 30, 32. But here's the idea though, is the fact that price started to break below these bands. Well, in the afternoon, New York afternoon, anyone who took a trade upon the break here, for instance, here we had the cross of the 21 and the 89. If you took a trade right in that momentum, you got a bit of pips here. As I said, it's not easy to take sometimes. The other one was on the, let me think, the Aussie, as I already said yesterday, and the afternoon too here, this spike up. Those were the best in the afternoon. My afternoon, New York session, New York morning. Kiwi finally moving a bit down. Let's hope it continues 4.5 pips now from that. Or 3, depending where, 2.5 from this wick. Did look like a discount to me, but who knows, let's see. Pound still hanging there right at the L3. How about the Euro Yen? Euro Yen getting a bit of a bounce, luckily. Let's see if you can make a revival here at the spot. Looks a bit more, that second bullish candle gives a bit more higher chance of a rebound here, I would say. How about the Euro New Zealand? Those are the four I'm keeping an eye on: Euro New Zealand, Euro Yen, Pound Dollar, and New Zealand Dollar. For the moment, at least. Also pushing up. Take a look at the Euro Dollar here. Yeah, all of these dollars look pretty bullish. The least bullish is the least dollar bullishness is on the euro, against the euro. The euro dollar looks the least bearish, in other words. So that's why maybe the euro New Zealand, euro yen look better than the other ones. The Aussie in general is a bit difficult though because of that news spike. I, personally don't like. It's still possible that it's a short right here, but it's not that extreme. This is only the second consolidation after that big spike, but most of the time I really only like, if I trade it, I would only like the first consolidation. You do usually see 2, 3 consolidations. The second is already less desirable. I'm not a big fan of trading it past an L5 or H5 either. So those are reasons why although it can easily move down another 30 pips, I'm not a big fan of it, so rather not trade this one. So therefore, Euro odd and Pound odd are kind of off the list. Dollar yen may be a pair that could be interesting to keep an eye on. It is at a decision spot. If you look at the moving averages, it's in between the weekly and daily pivot points. So let's see which way it breaks out. This could be an interesting scenario where either price goes below this trend line and below the daily pivot point, or maybe above the weekly and goes through H4 here for some upside momentum up to 103. So this could be not a bad one to keep an eye on either. Right? It's at a talking spot. With the each ECB lunchtime, yeah, that is always the question. Today I did. Usually I don't. But the euro yen looked so good as a setup that with a few hours to go, I couldn't resist the temptation. Which, yeah, we'll find out. I mean, if worst case, it's a small loss. It did push up a pretty decent amount. Maybe should have reduced the risk to break even. I don't know. But what can you do? It's part of life sometimes. But I think the closer we get, obviously, the slower price will move. But it's still a few hours from now, so it's really a personal choice that each trader will have to make. But if there's a day that you want to take off, then the NFP days and euro and pound interest days are great days for that. Those 2 days. So this is my main focus of today. The pound is pushing through on the 50-minute chart at least. Maybe we can take a look at the hourly chart so that we see a different perspective instead of me just wandering through all these 50-minute charts. Kiwi is falling indeed, pound is falling indeed. Euro yen is retracing, hopefully. Time will tell. And one more last look at the euro New Zealand, fighting against this resistance. Alrighty. Now we could take a look at other pairs, of course, but these are the usual pairs I look at on the 50-minute chart. I don't want to look at, I don't know, maybe how many are there? About, let me quickly count. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13 or so. For me, that's enough on a lower time frame like that. More than enough. Obviously, the same principles could be used for pound Swissy. I just don't look at it on a 50-minute chart, but so I have no idea if there's something going on or not. For the fun of it, we could take a look. It's at the weekly pivot point. Looks bearish. Not much momentum though at the moment. So I don't know, it doesn't look that appealing. Let's take a look at the hourly charts instead. You can see that the euro dollar is being squeezed in between the resistance and the moving averages here. So the euro dollar is in a bit of a peculiar situation. It's definitely in a downtrend overall, especially if you look at the 4-hour chart, you'll definitely see that. So, hunting for some shorts, as we can see, never hurts when you get back to resistance in a downtrend. And some fall here is possible, surely if you look at the bigger downtrend. Still, though, from a bigger point of view, we have 4-hour divergence. So I'm still wondering if this at some point will not make a bit of a bigger retracement, but maybe I'm overestimating the euro. Time will tell. On the hourly, I don't see anything particular interesting, though. The pound dollar looks better. It had a good breakout candle 2 hours ago, right here under the 21 band. That looks like a good hourly breakout, and that's still seeing follow through here with last hour's candle. This one is still open, this hour's candle. The Aussie just looks a bit funky, obviously, with the hourly, with these ups and downs. It did have a good shooting star here, or some wick at top at least. Maybe something to consider yesterday. Otherwise, difficult from the hourly perspective. Kiwi hourly. Kiwi hourly is trying to, oh, we talked about this one already. It's trying to push through. This looks good on the hourly, right? That's why I like the 15 as well. That was the whole idea. I forgot. We already talked about that. Let's see how this 15-minute kind of closes in 2 minutes. Looks like indeed good follow through to the downside. It would help that bearish idea. Dollar CAD hourly. Not interesting. Dollar yen hourly. Not really interesting. No, sorry. Euro yen. Too much in the middle of these pivot points. Everything is just consolidating. Euro yen from hourly perspective, once again, the euro yen. It had momentum to the downside. That's something you don't see sometimes on the 15 when you get excited about upside. But this actually, that upside, maybe a bit counter trend here on the hourly, but we would need to break below the daily pivot really for more bearishness, I would say, for an hourly potential. Pound yen. This looks bearish too. Need to close below the band here though. For instance, we already had an hourly close below the daily pivot point. That looks bearish too on the hourly actually. Odd yen, euro odd. I would skip all the Aussies for the moment. So if I look at the hourlies on various pairs, it makes me a bit doubtful about this euro yen. I might actually close it now just for 8 pips. All right. the Kiwi just closed 1 minute ago. This is looking better anyhow than the euro yen. How about the pound dollar? Also closed 50-minute candle just a second ago. Kind of a bit of a wick here upon the break. Well, maybe there's always a chance we could retrace back to this band. There's definitely that chance. Yeah, the Kiwi looks the best. Nice descending wedge was fighting against this L3. Kind of broke through it already, but then made a retracement, which therefore looked like a discount. Yep, so let's see. But the hourly check, once again, the hourly, I think the pound yen is looking the best. I would say a close, in my opinion, below this trend line, a close below the 21 band could signal the momentum on this 1 hour chart for follow through to the downside here. Just like we saw maybe with the break of this trend line, for instance. So yeah, that probably is the swing trade I would say is most interesting. But we do have the pound interest rate, so yeah, that's going to be difficult from an hourly perspective. I mean, in theory, if we wouldn't have that, that would look the best. Other than that, I don't know at the moment. Actually, that was the only one I found interesting, I think. Let's take a look at the euro CAD. Oh, that also has the euro. Well, the euro and pound interest rate just makes swing trades obviously not desirable, because there's no way anyone can exit a trade based on 3-4 hour candles. It would be difficult. So a 50-minute chart obviously, or 5-minute chart is different obviously, because you still have a lot of bars until that news event. We don't have that with the hourly, so you know, looking at the hourly is make less sense until maybe 6 hours from now when the dust settles, for instance. So maybe looking at 4 hours or daily has more sense. Let me take a look at pound yen 4 hour. Four hour is not closed, but look at this, very interesting wick. And yesterday's fall in the pound yen really making a nice break of any support that was still present here. When you look at this bottom, for instance, and these bottoms here, clearly breaking through it with now lower lows and lower highs. And we now actually price easily retrace back to that broken support, which could be resistance. So some follow through now that we're picking up speed makes sense. Let's see daily chart. Yesterday's daily candle bearish. So it looks bearish, but once again, I would wait. Of course, this is dependent on that news event, but if you look at the higher time frames, it looks pretty interesting for later today or maybe tomorrow to see if we can get a follow through to the downside. What is the what if scenario? Well, obviously, if whatever the news could be good, we are still relatively at the 89 EMA of the daily chart, which previously has been a bouncing spot a couple of times. So it is something to be careful of. You see this 89 EMA has acted as a kind of like a golden last line in its uptrend defense from the very start of the uptrend in August 2012, 2 years ago. After the pound yen made double bottom here at about 117.50, if I remember correctly. 117.50 indeed. And then it really started to rally fast, and all of us know that it went up 5,500 pips after that, all the way eventually following the 89 EMA, and the price only breaking with small parts below it all the way up to 175. So this is another crucial moment. If we do break below it, which I wouldn't be surprised if it finally does. It has been above it for 2 years, so that strange it wouldn't be. Then that could, of course, see some interesting potential for some downside. That would depend on the pound, certainly against the dollar as well, which within the long run, the pound would need to break below the daily bottom here at 167. And breaking that daily, weekly bottom could entail the fact that price could retrace and retest this bottom here. And then we know how the pound likes to test bottoms and have deep fibs and then bounce off it again. So let's see, step by step. I mean, this is of course a far long-term trend development. Will that happen? No idea. But that's my initial long-term analysis at the moment. Euro yen, it's good. I closed it. I didn't saved a few pips there because it looked bearish indeed. If I looked at the hourly, and 15 had another bearish candle, so saved a few pips there. Lost only 8 instead of 12, I think, or 13. Not a big difference, but still. Should have not probably lost those 8, but okay. Pound making a bit of a rebound, a bit nasty how it touched the L3 and then now retracing. Kiwi retracing 2, not breaking the 84.50 as yet. I will still have patience with the Kiwi, so I'm not changing plan because of this retrace at the moment. There's no reason as yet. Unless I would only change it if we get a candle close above 84.65. Any questions by any chance? No questions? I'm thinking what I could show you now, but actually I think I've really, for the moment, discussed what I wanted to present to you. So we can talk about the weather now. Here in Prague, it's going to be, let me check, I think it's going to be 27 or something like that. 27 degrees, 28. What else? What kind of news events did we have? Actually, besides that, we have Swiss, German, French trade balance ban. It's just some lighter news. Oh, it's all done already. Sorry. Greek unemployment rate, 27. Yikes. Irish CPI. That's a good Euro news so far, all red. Let's take a look at the Euro CAD. Is it indeed moving up? Yeah, we have a bit of a spike here up to the daily pivot point. So let's see if that is that enough for maybe some follow through. In my opinion, not yet. I would want to see a bit more confirmation of a momentum to the upside. I think this is just a bit too little. It's discretionary, but my 2 cents, not yet. But the CAD has obviously moved up a lot in weakness against the pound, against the euro, against the dollar, so we could see follow through. Made a sturdy retracement yesterday. We could see that follow through. The pound CAD is one of them we discussed, I think, yesterday. And I was saying that there could be some downside from here, remember? But bouncing spots maybe at this level, which we had here, it bounced indeed. We got a bounce, but the bounce didn't go anywhere before we got another follow through and back at the support, right? Which we are getting a bounce here indeed. So that pretty much happened indeed. Intraday down with bounces at the support levels. So it's going to be interesting to see also, yeah, we had a Harami daily candle. That's a bearish signal, in fact. I was a bit leery of this break. I realized it could be a full break, but I wanted the weekly candle to wait for the weekly candle to see how it breaks. And so far, well, we don't know. We still have 2 days to go. It's getting a bit of a wick here. That's what I was a bit afraid of. So let's see if it closes like this. I don't think it's a good break. If it obviously closes near the high, it's a better break. All depends on the next 2 days. The weekly candle, I think, is a good measurement of that. The daily candle doesn't look that good. Harami on the daily. Still bullish environment, though, looking at the moving averages. If we then look at the 4-hour and an hourly, we see the fact that price could be bouncing off of the support levels at the weekly pivot, monthly, and these supports in here. This, too, of course, has the influence and impact from the pound news event. And if we then zoom into the 15, and then it's too early because it's still in the bearish mode. So just a quick recap of the pound CAD we discussed yesterday. Well, folks, that will wrap it up, I guess. I don't want to keep you here without me having anything to add. We can take a last look at the Kiwi 50-minute chart. That's about finishing now. This 50-minute candle, any point right now? Good. You see 21 EMA band remains bearish. Price has a bit of wick on top. Anyhow, no way it closed above 84.65. So I'm not worried with this Kiwi short at the moment. Pound is retracing a bit. It could bump into resistance at the 21 EMA band. Euro is not breaking. Euro yen is out of the scope because it's moving back to the opposite side, in fact. So that's out of the question. The euro dollar, I would say, something that I might add. Unfortunately, now the interest rates are getting closer and closer, so it may not make sense anymore. But the euro dollar is showing some nice momentum here to the downside as well. So, but anyhow, that's too late probably. Dollar yen is hanging in the air as well. And that's about it for the moment. So thank you so much. Wish you all a great holiday, great August. If you take some days off, I'm wishing you a holiday because I'm going on holiday, I guess. So, but of course, I don't know if you really are. If not, then I wish you great trading next week, today and tomorrow as well. And we'll be back Nana tonight from Tuesday the 19th of August. So I hope to see you then again. And enjoy the days. Thank you so much for your wishes. And have a great August or part of the August until the 19th. And see you all soon. Cheers.